make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
Christian
Watson?
I'd take Watson over Wilson.
No way.
Right
No
now.
way. No way.
Absolutely
not.
Yes. All right, thanks for tuning back to the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker.
And Aiden Tiksinski.
fresh off the flu. Let's get right into it. So we had the championship game for college the other night. Aiden gave me the homework assignment of watching it, and man, was it a drag. That was not a good welcome to college football at all.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I stopped watching around the middle of the third quarter. If you made it through the entire game, you're either a Georgia fan or you really do not like TCU. Because if you're just a neutral fan watching the game, there's no reason to watch it after. I would say first half you could have stopped. If you really love college football, third quarter's fine. If you made it past that, you just do not like yourself, obviously.
I gave TCU like 3 minutes to try and show that they could make it a game, and they didn't. Georgia pretty much struck like off the bat in the second half too. So yeah, there was no point in watching.
Stetson, he didn't even play 3 full quarters, did he?
No,
he played really well. I mean, he had a lot of haters. Like honestly, you could have said he was the Daniel Jones of college football, like going into 2022, because like a lot of people were just doubting his ability, and like he's proven all season long that he's able to win games for Georgia, not just be a placement guy there or someone who doesn't really affect the games. Like he's won them a ton of games this year. He's a great player.
Yeah. Do you think like this was like his showing of, if a team can draft me and if they give me a chance, I could like make a run for the starting job?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would set off scouts and teams is like his size, I guess, and maybe his arm strength. But like, he's shown to be a really smart football player. I think he does deserve a shot. He'll probably be like a mid to late round pick. I mean, he's not going to jump draft boards at all. He's not going to have a Baker Mayfield jump. Like Mayfield was projected to be like third pretty much once the season ended, and then he had a late surge up into the first round that took him to number 1 overall. Like that's not going to happen with a guy like Bennett. He's going to be a late round pick, and then he'll get his chance as a backup, and then if he has to fill in here and there, he can prove himself.
Yeah, I don't love him as a starter, and this is not knocking it at all. He's had an amazing career. Anyone that doubted him after last year's run just wasn't paying attention, and he proved those people wrong. I was one of those people that sort of doubted him a little bit up until the Bama when they played Bama in the SEC championship. That's when I first doubted him a little bit, because obviously Georgia had played really well, but the SEC East is a very weak division. It wasn't until the championship game where he went up against Bryce Young, who's considered the number 1 draft pick right now, and outplayed him fully in that game. This year, I thought he was going to do the exact same thing. He did that. His stats aren't great. He's throwing around 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns about. He doesn't turn over the ball a lot, which is really good if you have a backup that doesn't do that. I feel like that's the issue with a lot of NFL quarterbacks who get drafted late and go as backups. They're guys that have a lot of ability, but have had some sort of problem, whether it's you don't have the skill compared to starters or you have too many turnovers. Bennett doesn't have that, and he's faster than a lot of guys that are going to be considered backups going into next year.
Yeah, he's really sneaky athletic.
Yeah. His speed is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How he reads the field is a lot like a running back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind trying him as a running back in certain plays either, or wildcat formation, just with his athletic ability.
Yeah.
Do you think he could switch possibly once he gets there?
I think he wants to be he wants to be a quarterback. And he's proven, I mean, he was 29-1 the last 2 years as a starter. Yeah. There's no reason why he shouldn't feel, with everything that he's went through, starting out as like the 6th-string quarterback at Georgia, having to transfer out of Georgia, winning the championship at a JUCO school, then going back to Georgia, still not having the starting spot and winning that. This dude has proven so much as a college quarterback. I would have no problem letting him be an NFL quarterback if I had a quarterback who got hurt as a starter and he's the backup. No problem giving him the range and saying, here you go. I fully trust you running the offense. We're not even going to change it a little bit because of all this adversity that you've gone through, and you keep proving you're a winner. You have that dog mentality that Georgia talked about the entire year. Kirby Smart talked. If there's a player that summarizes what Georgia wants to be in the mentality Georgia has the last 2 years at Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
And Kirby Smart talked about.
Like, this year we've seen with a lot of NFL teams, most notably the Cardinals, like, when you have a quarterback who's a little bit injury prone, and then once he gets hurt, your season is completely derailed. Like, they had no one who could fill in. They tried Colt McCoy, and as much as I love McSorley, like, he just can't get it done in the NFL. I mean, it's been proven now. So I wouldn't, if you're the Cardinals sitting there in the 5th or 6th round and the skill position guys are looking sort of weak for you, why not go for a guy like Stetson Bennett? He's worth a better shot than Colt McCoy and Trace McSorley at this point. I think that for a guy like him, having that backup position is such a great way to propel yourself into something, once your rookie contract is up.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at other places he could go. I found this article that mentioned Tennessee, and I thought that could be a great spot, especially if Henry stays, because that would just provide stability. But another one that I wasn't thinking about was the Kansas City Chiefs, because he could be the backup there, pick up some years experience. He could probably play week 17 because they're probably going to clinch like really early again next year. So you never know, but I don't know. I think it would be a good developing team for him to start his career on.
Yeah, and we touched on that last week. Like, part of building a QB is the coaching, and Kansas City would be a great option, obviously, when you're under Andy Reid.
I'm also interested to see what this does to Max Duggar now, because he did not play that well in the passing game. He still had a nice rushing touchdown. You're not going to run on Georgia's defense at all. That's been proven all season, and it held up true in the championship. I mean, TCU just didn't have the offensive line to stop Georgia.
But just to push back, do you think if their starting running back was healthy and playing in the game, do you think it would have had any change?
I don't think it was a running back issue, really. I think it was just a line of scrimmage issue.
It would have made a little bit of a difference just because it was really athletic. At the end of the day, TCU ran the ball really well with their backups against Michigan. So that should have given them a lot of confidence, and it did at the beginning of the game. That's something that the announcer said, is that TCU was still very confident in the backup running backs they had because of what they did to Michigan. Michigan was a better run defense than even Georgia was. TCU just flat out embarrassed them in the semifinals. So, no, it's just the fact that Georgia was that much better than them. We talked about this on the show. TCU had a lot of speed. Georgia not only has the speed, they just have bigger players. It is ridiculous how fast some of these Georgia guys are, and the size that they are, too. I mean, Eagles fans have already seen that in some of the players that they got. I mean, Jordan Davis is a freak athlete.
And even Dean, like, in the flashes we've seen on special teams, like, he flies down the field. He's always looking to hit someone. And, like, looking at Carter on the D-line, I mean, he fits that mold that you're talking about. Just an enormous human being that is incredibly fast and incredibly physical. That's what Georgia's was. Their brand of football was being physical. We're going to out-physical you the whole entire game. And then on top of that, their skill positions were a leg above a lot of teams. And it led to a 65-7 championship win. I mean, that's what's the formula. I have another thing to say. It's interesting how, like, Georgia's recruiting actually translates onto the field, unlike Texas A&M this year, who had the number 1 recruiting class and, like, couldn't do anything with it. Now we're seeing a lot of their guys transfer out. It's weird. I think that's the coaching dynamic. Like, as much as I like Jimbo Fisher, and he was a good coach, I think that he's losing his touch a little bit. Like, I think when you get that many 5-star recruits in, and you aren't producing like Georgia is, who got just as much, like, I think that looks at your coaching and you're like, what is this? Or also it could look at your quarterback play. Because Bennett was that much better than what Texas A&M was putting out.
Georgia is now at Alabama's level. And Texas A&M is now even falling behind other SEC teams like Tennessee. Which has got to scare the crap out of Texas A&M fans. Because they were supposed to be where Tennessee sort of is now. Where maybe you're not at the national championship level yet. But you're getting there. Like, in my opinion, Tennessee has proven that they can now compete with a couple other teams. They only lost by 2 touchdowns to Georgia and played very, very well against Alabama. Texas A&M did not look good against anyone of that caliber.
And even LSU, like, they were hovering in the top 10 until the very end, and then they fell out pretty much.
I mean, LSU had a bad start, but they played a lot better at the end.
And it looks like they're trending in the right direction starting next year. Like, Texas A&M is nowhere near.
And that's the other scary part, too, is you're now falling behind Tennessee and LSU, 2 teams that were also rebuilding programs. And now you got Texas and Oklahoma coming in the next couple of years. And
they're going to be in your division, too.
Exactly. And again, Texas did not play that well this year. Oklahoma played better than I think a lot of people expected.
Yeah.
But still, when you lose guys like Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, you're going to struggle, obviously. But they'll rebuild. And if you're at the same level as Texas in your state and you're now recruiting in the same conference, in the same state, in the same region as all these other teams that are playing really well, you're going to be a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it would be great if Tennessee gets in that playoff mix because, like, that atmosphere in there is, like,
oh, yeah,
it's
100%.
unreal.
No, like, the SEC home games are unlike anything else in this country.
I will say, though, that the Big 12, it's just the same reason, slightly smaller schools, not well known. Kansas played very well this year. For as horribly as their program has played, they looked like a competent college football team, which you don't expect. Iowa State didn't play up to their level, but they've always been really good. And as badly as TCU played in the championship, you cannot discount what they did this year.
Yeah.
No.
And they throw Kansas State in that mix, too.
Yeah. No, both of them were amazing the entire season.
Yeah, right.
And you could say, if TCU had lost to Michigan, it's a down season. Again, they played straight up much better than Michigan, and Michigan was heavily favored in that game.
Yeah.
This just shows how much farther Georgia is above everyone else. Because I have the same feeling, had Michigan won that game, they would have gotten crushed. Maybe it wouldn't have been close to that score, but I feel like the score would have been 45-7.
Yeah, right.
The only team that played up to that, Georgia, this entire play, Ohio State. Ohio State has a very, very good program, and they're going to get discounted if you keep losing to Michigan.
Right.
But, man, they played very well in that game. And it showed to me why C.J. Stroud should be the number 1 overdraft pick over Bryce Young. The fact Young's even being considered at this point is ridiculous.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. Like, the reason Ohio State played that close to Georgia was because C.J. Stroud played out of his mind. And, like, you cannot expect that quarterback play from J.J. McCarthy. Or going into the game, you would have thought Duggar would have at least put up close to what C.J. Stroud did. But, I mean, when you get that performance from a quarterback, like, that's the result you're going to get against a team like Georgia.
Yeah. So you guys would both take CJ over Bryce?
Yeah, honestly, like, it's more about tools for me. And, like, I think Bryce Young's still going to be a good player, but I think Stroud, with his size, and, like, we've seen, you know, this was kind of the debate between Herbert and Tua. It's sort of similar to what we're looking at now because of the size differential. And I think that Stroud's size makes me want to pick him over a guy like Bryce Young, even though I do think Young will be good. If you were the Miami Dolphins, wouldn't you go back and take Herbert at 6 instead of Tua, or 5 it was maybe?
Yeah.
Like, I think I would take Herbert over Tua.
See,
You're not scared of the Ohio State quarterback superstition?
I always thought that was the case for Alabama too, but now that Hurts has kind of broken that mold, I think that a guy like Stroud could break a mold like that.
I think he needs to do it consistently first.
Hurts?
Yeah. I mean, he could have 1 year.
Even
wait. Here's the thing. It's Hurts. It's Mac Jones.
Yeah.
It's Tua.
I'm going to push back a little bit. Mac Jones is not...
He's
not.
Okay, wait.
He's above average.
He's above average.
He got there, the Patriots were 7-9 with a mixture of Cam Newton and a bunch of other quarterbacks that did nothing. Mac Jones' first year, they go 11-6 and make the playoffs. Yes, they got crushed by the Bills in that point. But Mac Jones is also the reason why the Patriots finished 8-9 this year, where if they had any other quarterback, they would have been horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's hell of a lot closer to the Daniel Jones echelon than he is to the Jalen Hurts echelon.
Okay, but it still shows, but it still shows that Alabama can put up competent quarterbacks, which they were never able to. The best quarterback to come out of Alabama before this was A.J. McCarron, who was a career-long backup.
Yeah.
I also looked at McCarron's stats just to see where I have a picture of McCarron in my room that I got when I went to Savannah.
Yeah.
And I was just curious where he's at now because you don't hear anything. He's going to be playing with the Battlehawks of the new XFL this year.
Okay, all right.
But I looked at his stats. He was only given 7 career starts in 1 season. And his stats weren't that bad. It's just that he sort of fit that unathletic quarterback that Alabama always had that was starting to get phased out when he sort of was drafted at the wrong time.
Right, yeah.
If he was drafted 5 years earlier, he probably gets to be a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But now Bama has found, like I said before, Mac Jones went to the perfect team with the Patriots.
Yeah.
Being that unathletic, it just fits better. But when you look at these 3 quarterbacks, they're still making the playoffs the last 2 years. That's not something Bama quarterbacks did before this.
Yeah, I think that if you're drafting based on college instead of talent, I think you're looking the wrong route because, I mean, we've seen guys from smaller schools have good careers. You know, like immediate guy that comes to mind is Flacco, who went to Delaware, which is like a nothing football program, but he was a Super Bowl MVP quarterback. Like, you know, that it's rare. That's literally so rare to find. So I think that, and I mean, Ohio State is nowhere near Delaware. So, and Ohio State is one of the best coached programs in the league. And they send a bunch of other positions to the NFL that are extremely well coached players and that have great careers. So I don't think that you should deter that from Stroud going into this draft, you know.
I also want to say rest in peace to Hoskins for everything that happened.
Yeah.
I think that had he been able to play with the Steelers, he would have been the quarterback that everyone thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
Because he would have been put in a situation where Mike Tomlin is very good mentoring people, putting them in positions where, okay, maybe Hoskins struggled off the field. I feel like under Tomlin, those problems would have been fixed. He would have actually learned how to play NFL football.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And again, it's so unfortunate what happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they never got that opportunity.
Yeah.
It is insane though. They finished like above 500. Like
Yeah,
they
that
went
team.
from Mitch to Kenny back to Mitch. Like,
Oh, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Mike Tomlin is the second best coach
Yeah.
Yeah.
right now. Easily.
Didn't they start 2-6 or 7
Yes.
and they finished 9-8?
yeah,
Like,
we
that's
all
insane.
said this was going to be his first losing season.
And
Yeah,
he put them in a position where they were in the playoffs. If it wasn't for the Jets'
I
incompetent
know.
offense,
Oh
they
my
would have
God.
made the playoffs.
Yeah. How frustrating must that be
Yeah.
for a Steelers fan? Like,
And this is why you can't wait until the last week of the season to try to clinch a playoff spot. Because then you're just leaving it up to 3 different teams. You can't put yourself in a position like that.
yeah, that's why it's so important to control your
Yeah.
own destiny.
And this is why, even in what a lot of NFL fans think is you lose week 1 or week 2 to a game that you don't even think is going to be meaningless. And then it ends up being that would have been the deciding game
yeah.
later in the season. Every game is important.
Yeah, and actually, the Steelers lost to the Dolphins
Yep.
in like week 6 or 7 of this year. So, like, going back to what you're saying, like those early games,
Yep.
it could come back to bite you.
Yeah. You just never know. and
Especially
that's-
in conference. Like,
Yeah. And the thing is, the Dolphins, when they played that game, the Dolphins were struggling.
Mhm.
They were playing okay, but they didn't look great.
Yeah.
The Steelers were absolutely struggling. And the Patriots have been teetering under 500 up until
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks.
Mhm. Right.
Mhm. I mean, the final score was 11-6, so like something wasn't
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
right.
well, yeah. I mean, the Dolphins have a lot of issues going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think it more shows the fact that the Jets' offense is totally collapsed
Yeah, it was
at the end of the
so
season.
competent. Yeah.
That watching that game, because I spent my entire Sunday watching the football games.
Yeah,
like
same.
I knew these games were going to be important, so I sat down and watched. I watched pretty much the entire Jets offense game. One of the most boring NFL games I've
Yeah.
watched recently.
I really thought Flacco could have been better than that, but he was so bad. And, like, I just thought he had something left in the tank, like, more than just a 6-point victory or 6-point defeat. You know?
Yeah, I mean the Jets' offensive line also
Yeah, it's
sucks
horrible. Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, and like, dude, the Jets' main problem this year was losing Becton before the season started, you know, and I'm interested to see how bad that injury is going to affect his future. I'm pretty sure it was an Achilles or something like that, and it could have a long-term effect, which would suck, because Becton was looking so good his rookie year,
Yeah.
and then you saw, like, pretty much this whole year, the Jets haven't really had a great offensive line, and Mekhi Becton would have really solidified that for them, and it was showcased on Sunday. Like, Flacco had absolutely nowhere to throw because it felt like there was always a guy in his face. And somewhat credit to the Dolphins D-line. Like, they're really good. They have that, I'm drawing a blank on his name, number 15. I think it's Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher. He's had a really quiet season. Like, he's really underrated. And then Wilkins in the front, like, they have a good defense. They have a couple names up there.
Yeah, I was also with the Jets losing Brees Hall
Yeah,
in the middle of
right.
the season sucked. I'm shocked that James Robinson did as badly as he did.
I know,
They never
yeah.
really gave him the opportunity, it felt like, either.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Carter's a fine running back, but Robinson proved he could be a RB1
Yeah.
in Jacksonville. Why would you not give him the same
Yeah,
opportunity
especially
now?
when you were struggling at QB.
Yeah.
You know, Robinson could at least help some of that,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
They just it never felt like they gave him the opportunity. I mean, Mike LaFleur, his brother, who was the offensive coordinator for
Yeah.
the Jets, just got fired.
Yeah, right.
So it seems like that they're going to be moving in a new direction. It'll be interesting to see what they do with a bunch of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I would prefer to talk about the teams in the playoffs and not the Jets for the rest of the podcast. So
Actually, let's talk about one more team that missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then we'll cover our NFL playoff bracket.
Yeah.
But Aaron Rodgers.
okay, this game I do want to talk about because the
Aaron
Lions played their asses off.
Yeah,
last
Rodgers.
game.
right. Uh-huh.
It was not his fucking fault.
Oh, don't.
Nah, I mean,
Okay, wait. That pass into double coverage that late in the game.
Did you see what the offensive line did? It was red light,
Yes.
green light, and they didn't move. They didn't move.
Well, okay,
They literally.
so this is what I will. It was a gutsy performance by the Lions. This is This was the start of the gutsy ending that the Lions had.
mhm.
Calling an all-out blitz this late in the game when there'd already been 2 pass interference on the Lions because they'd been doing the single coverage, which is what they did the third time when they did
Mhm.
all-out blitzes. It felt like that there was going to be another pass interference.
Yeah.
The moment I saw them blitz, my initial reaction was, "Oh no, there's going to be another pass interference."
Yeah.
And then Rodgers lofted it. That pass.
Okay, but did you see how many guys were right at his fucking face as soon
Yeah, I mean,
as
he
the-
had to throw it, but it was just such a.
And
like,
how
it
many
just
times have
fluttered
we
in the
seen
air.
Aaron Rodgers make that pass his entire career?
Mhm. Yeah.
When the blitz is on him, he reads single coverage better than any
Yeah.
other quarterback.
Right. He's one of the best QBs ever against the blitz.
But he has a broken thumb on his throwing hand.
I guess that might be it, but it could have been the weather. Excuse me, the weather too. You know, the frigid conditions. Like we've seen Rodgers. You know, you could go to the Miracle in Detroit when he had that long Hail Mary of like
Mhm.
60 yards. Like, we've seen him make that throw before, and I think the conditions and also the pressure affected that throw, which was like, yeah, it's not really his fault, but don't you think it's a better option to just throw that ball away instead of throwing that into double coverage?
That was
there?
3rd and 10, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's better to take the incompletion and be able to punt than have to throw the interception. Like, it just wasn't really a smart play necessarily, but, you know,
Okay, but
there were other factors, obviously.
Okay, but to even further Rodgers' defense, his special teams missed a kick. Shock, we didn't see that last year. Romeo Dobbs, he lofted the best ball he ever got in his entire life,
Yeah.
and he will never get a better ball like that in his entire life. And
That
that
was a
probably
bad
would have sealed the whole game if he caught it.
Mhm.
Because it would have been 35 yards at
Yep.
least. He may have saw the end zone that play.
Yeah.
He may have saw the end zone. And, oh yeah, the last play, his offensive lineman decided not to move. Like, how is it Aaron Rodgers' fault?
Well, here's what I'll say about this play, and this is the great coach, Dan Campbell.
Mhm.
How many coaches would say on a 3rd and 10 in a situation where you need to lock down Aaron Rodgers to win a game, no, we're going to all out blitz
Yeah.
and let our defense win the
Yeah.
game for us? How many coaches? I am sure that Rodgers and LaFleur and the entire offense did not expect them to
Yeah.
blitz. I didn't expect them
They
to blitz.
didn't.
That was a masterclass by Campbell. I mean,
Yeah.
and
That
his entire
was
staff.
that's what won them the game. It wasn't. Look, I'm gonna knock Aaron Rodgers because it's fun to do, but at the end of the day, the reason that the Lions won that game is the coaching by Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
100%. And teams that there has been a lot of criticism of the way Campbell's ended games. The way that he ended this game showed why he's a good NFL coach.
Yeah, and like to further your point, like the whole entire game, it looked like LaFleur was coaching on his heels, and Dan Campbell was just shoving him backwards.
And this is the interesting thing that we talked about last week. When Seattle won that game, there was nothing that Detroit had to play for.
Yeah,
Playing that late, you already have watched. I'm sure everyone watched the entire Seattle game
Yeah.
against the Rams,
Mhm.
winning in overtime for Seattle to basically clinch the playoff spot,
Yeah.
or at least give them a shot at clinching.
yeah,
Lions had nothing to play for. Dan Campbell had his guys fired up. I
Yeah,
am
right.
positive that LaFleur and the rest of the Packers coaches said, okay, we've got the Lions have nothing to play
yeah,
for.
right, yeah,
We're going to easily smoke them. They're not going to care at all. Dan Campbell fired those guys up. I'm sure he said,
yeah,
and everyone was saying this before the game, look, we might not have anything to play for. We want to knock the Packers out.
Yeah.
We want to prove to everyone that we are ready for next season,
Mhm.
regardless of how bad this season went for the majority of the year.
yeah, and like finishing above 500 after their 1-6 start
Yeah.
is such a huge accomplishment for them. Going 8-2 their last 10 games, so
Yeah.
the Lions, like we said, with a couple of the college football teams, that's a team that's trending upward
Yeah.
going into next year. And like they have a couple pieces. Goff didn't look horrible this year.
No, he didn't.
Here's
Kind of the same arc as Daniel Jones, just a little bit.
I would say better.
Better, way better.
This is the debate that Moby and I had about a week ago. When you look at Jared Goff's stats, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. This year, at least.
Yeah.
That's not something he's even close to in McVay's offense.
Yeah.
And Sean McVay is supposed to be considered as offensive guru that could make anyone a superstar.
Yeah.
I don't really see it anymore.
I don't either.
No.
I mean, he did it with Stafford a lot, but when you look at what Goff was able to do with this offense.
Yeah, right. And going back to what you're saying, too, not only are Goff's stats like top 10 QB, top 5 QB, the entire team is like that, too. Rushing offense and passing offense, both top 10. Overall offense, top 10. Like they had a really good year, and they just have to fix some things on the defensive end. Adding young pieces, adding young core is going to help that. And like Aiden Hutchinson is a great player to have that for, because you know how important an edge rusher is for any defense. Like that's the spot that you want to have locked down. I think they got that with Hutchinson. And then I love their cornerback from Penn State. I can never pronounce his name, but I think he's a good piece. Like not necessarily a cornerback 1, but you know, if you pair him with a quarterback better than him, that would be a really good second cornerback, sort of like Bradbury with Darius Slay. I just have to say, Green Bay, man, just another disappointment at home. Like we've seen this trend so much, you know, like they have everything set up in their favor. You know, you have a dome team coming into your outdoor frigid frozen tundra. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it was set up for them to win this game. All you have to do is win and get in. You didn't need anything else. And the Lions really took it to him. I mean,
LaFleur is a problem.
Yeah,
Romeo
LaFleur
Dobbs
did
is a
not look
problem. The special teams is
Aaron
a problem.
Rodgers had 205 passing yards in a must-win game and 1 touchdown and 1 interception.
Yeah,
okay,
he didn't play
but
well.
When the Lions were marching down their field, the drive before that, who was it? Number 7, the rookie.
Oh, that was a crazy play.
That was complete. Yeah,
that was so stupid.
That was the
Dumb.
piece I was missing with you.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing
Yeah,
here? Like,
right. No.
and
this
especially
is a playoff game.
with everything that happened with DeMar Hamlin.
Yeah, I know.
Deciding to push the trainer.
Yeah.
Less than a week after all that went down. And again, we haven't really touched on this episode. DeMar Hamlin out of the hospital officially today.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing recovery that he has had.
Yeah.
The fact that what the University of Cincinnati hospital staff was able to do, the trainers for the Bills, everything about this story is amazing.
Yeah, the medical staff saved his life.
Yeah.
And like the fact that he did that to a training staff member that was just trying to help an injured player, like it was just completely mindless.
Yeah.
That's on LaFleur for taking someone who already had a DQ this year, putting him in that late of the game. A rookie, might you? Like,
I mean,
you gotta
he's
put
a good player, but like he just lost his cool. It's not necessarily on LaFleur. I think that's on Quay Walker. Like, you gotta be smarter than that.
No.
You just have to keep your cool in that situation. Like, it was just so boneheaded. I just want to say too, like, I have never seen anything like that.
No,
like
never.
I have never ever in my life seen a player push like someone like that. I've seen a player push a coach, but like a medical staff member, like
I understand. So from what I'm aware of is that Williams was a former teammate of Walker in college.
Mm-hmm.
Walker gets bumped a little bit if you watch the replay.
Yeah.
And I think it was the fact that he was so focused on his former teammate being hurt.
Yeah.
And then seeing this trainer come, like, he just got all flustered.
Yeah.
You still have to keep your cool.
Yeah, I know.
That's not an excuse.
Yeah, it's
for
really
what
not.
you did. I mean, I can rationalize it a little bit, but that's not an excuse at all.
Yeah, it's really not. And like,
again, especially after what just happened this last week, completely just
he's
so dumb.
But once again, Aaron Rodgers and his 9 fingers, it's all his fault.
I'm not saying it's all his fault. I'm just saying when you have a quarterback in this situation who you said this is supposed to be one of the most clutch guys in NFL history.
Okay, I never said he was.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying that if you're going to compare him to Tom Brady, who's the most clutch, you got to do something that's clutch. Mm-hmm. He has never once in his career done anything that's considered clutch in a must-win situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Outside of the times he's beaten the Cowboys
and the Bears.
Yeah,
you know, like,
which again, that wasn't even his win.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that was the defense stepping up against a team led by Jay Cutler and Matt Forte.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I will put this out there. It's pretty clear that he's going to leave this season, or if he wants to, he's out there. But it's up to the team. We'll see what happens. But if he goes to another team and gets into a good situation, you're going to see a Matt Stafford year 1 effect.
Depending on the team he goes to.
Maybe.
Right away. I'm telling you, right away. If he gets... If it's anything similar to the Rams situation when Matt Stafford walked in.
But it's not going to be the same, and here's why. The Rams wanted Stafford, and I'm sure what McVay told Stafford is, if we get you, we're selling the house.
Mm-hmm.
For 1 season and 1 season only. No other team, after seeing what's happened to the Rams in the past 2 years, is going to even attempt to try that.
Yeah, right. I mean, the Rams are in complete draft mayhem right now. They have like no picks, and they're set up so horribly for the future. They're paying a bunch of old guys right now. Their offensive line is completely battered and bruised. Like, they have nothing right now and no outlook for the future, really.
There's light at the end of the tunnel for him. You're going to see.
I mean, I've been saying this, I think he's going to go to the Jets.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good fit for him. I think he'd make them a playoff team, but I don't think he would make them an AFC contender.
Well, that's the thing. It's like young receivers again. So
Yeah. But good receivers.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson is much better than Dobbs is.
Mhm.
I mean,
I like Christian Watson,
I'd
but
take Watson over Wilson.
no
right
way,
now.
no
What are you
way,
talking
no way,
about?
absolutely
Yes,
not.
yes.
I was
Think about
just
what
saying.
Wilson was able to do with 3 of the worst
Yeah,
quarterbacks
no.
in the entire. You
No,
can't.
no.
Okay,
no,
wait
no.
until you see their next year.
No,
progression.
Watson
Wait
is
until
good.
you see
I
it.
But
like
Wilson's
Wait until
good
you
now.
Yeah, I like Watson, but he's not anywhere close to Garrett Wilson. I mean, Garrett Wilson, he's top 20 in the league probably, but Watson's got a ways to go for that.
You'll see.
We'll see. I mean, he might be better in the future, but right now, I think it's pretty clear Wilson's better.
I'm excited to see Jordan Love take over this
Yeah,
offense of Aaron Rodgers.
yeah.
Especially after that couple plays he had against Philly.
Yeah.
And the
He
fact
looks
that
good.
the whole staff has said that he's improved throughout the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, right.
How many years has it been?
Two or three? Two, I think.
2 or 3. I forget how
Was
many.
he drafted?
He was
the year-
2020, I think.
He was 20. Yeah,
Was
no,
that
so
Jill?
yeah, it was
Okay.
3. So in those 3 years, the coaching staff has said that he's developed into a much better quarterback
Yeah.
than when they
Yeah.
first got him.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay, so let's move into our playoff brackets.
Yeah.
Anyone want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, should we go game by game, I guess?
Why don't we just go like down the bracket? Well,
Okay.
I'll go first. I'll
All
go
right, all right.
first.
You go
'cause-
first. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna start AFC. So first game I see is the Bills and the Dolphins. This is a really tough one. Really tough one. I gotta go Bills by 60. Bengals and Ravens. Is this at a neutral site or is this
No,
at
this is-
okay?
No,
Okay.
it's and there's also a lot of reports that Lamar probably won't play because he didn't practice
Yeah,
all today.
I saw
Okay.
that.
Chances of him trying to play after being out something like close to 50 days
Mhm.
without practicing at all, it's very doubtful.
Yeah.
Bengals by 40. Okay, Jags and Chargers. I think this is going to be one of the best games of
Same,
the whole
yeah.
first series.
I agree.
I'm going to go Jags by 3.
Yeah, I have the
Mhm.
Jacksonville winning that too.
And, okay, moving to the NFC over the next round. Okay, staying in the same round over the NFC. I got Niners by 21 over the Seattle Seahawks. And then, you know, it's funny. When I was on this game, I was going to pick the Giants, but I pissed off a lot of Giants fans this week, and I'm switching up. I'm going Vikings by 7. Vikings by 7.
Okay.
And Daniel Jones is
Troll.
going to shit the bed. You heard it here first. All right. And I got Cowboys by 3 against the Buccaneers. I really want time to do it, but that team is not good.
Mhm.
And that's saying something because I don't think the Cowboys are that good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be close, but they both suck.
Mhm.
All right, moving into the next round. We got the Bills.
It would be the Bengals.
Yeah, Bills versus Bengals.
Would that be neutral site or that would be in Buffalo, right?
Well,
I'm
No,
pretty
because
sure
they
it'd be
both
Buff-
play the same amount of games.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
it would
so
be,
it
at
would be
Bills.
Buffalo.
So it would
Okay.
be Buffalo,
Okay.
yeah.
I got Bengals by 5. And then, let's see, I got the Jaguars
Mhm.
versus the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs by 18.
Mhm.
Moving over. Okay, so Cowboys versus Niners. Niners by 30. I think the Cowboys suck ass, so there you go. And then the Vikings versus the Eagles. I think we're
No,
gonna.
it would be. Wouldn't it be Dallas versus?
Yeah, no,
Philly?
yeah, so it'd be
Okay, Dallas versus Philly. I'll go 10 because it's a divisional game.
Philly.
And yeah, they know
Okay.
us well. They
All
know
right.
us well. And then the Niners versus the Vikings. They're gonna run them out the town.
Mhm.
I'll go Niners by 30
Mhm.
because Vikings ain't it. And they have the corners to stop Jefferson too.
Yeah.
We've seen like you stop Jefferson, you win this game.
Mhm.
Championship games. KC versus Bengals. I'm like flipping a coin in my head right now. I'm gonna go Bengals by 7. And then Eagles, Niners. I got Niners by 10. So Bengals, Niners. I'm gonna go Niners by 3. So Niners are your Super Bowl champion.
Okay. All right. I'll go next. I mean, I'll start in the AFC like you. Buffalo, Miami. I think it's pretty clear Buffalo is going to win that. I mean, I think we can rattle through like Cincy's going to beat Baltimore. And then on the NFC side, I'm sorry, I want to finish with Jacksonville, LA. This is going to be a really interesting game because they faced off in week 3 it was this year, and Jacksonville blew the doors off the Chargers in LA 38-10. I don't think it's going to be that this week, but Jacksonville has really impressed me this year. Like, they've always been a team I said was better than their record. I still, even at 9-8, I think Jacksonville is a little bit better than their record. Not too much anymore, but I think that Jacksonville's defense, led by that guy, the safety, number 23, I can't pronounce his name. He's from Nigeria. That dude is all over the field. He's a great player. I love him. I think he's a perfect guy to stop this Chargers offense. I think Jacksonville's going to win this. I said 24-16, so about 8 points. Like, I think it'll be around there, a little bit low scoring. On the NFC side, I think the San Fran Seattle game will be closer than you think. I have San Fran by 6. I think it'll be close up until about the third quarter, and San Fran might pull away a little bit. And then Giants Vikings. I know you and me made a couple Giants fans mad, but I think they have this week. I think that this is set up for an upset.
I think so too. I can't say it.
Watching that game on Christmas Eve, the Giants looked like a really good matchup for Minnesota. I think that having this break from week 18, because don't get it twisted, the Giants had a bye this week. They rested a bunch of their starters, and they had a bye coming into this. And Minnesota played all their starters, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Giants get their revenge and get this win on a field goal with time running out. And then Dallas, Tampa Bay, I'm with you, Jack. As much as I want Tampa Bay to win that, that's probably not going to happen. The main way to beat Dallas is to force Dak into tough situations and make him turn the ball over, which we've seen a lot of teams do this year. He led the league in interceptions. However,
somehow.
Yeah, I know. However, Tampa Bay is last in the league in interceptions, so I don't see Dallas slowing down here. So it'll be Jacksonville, Kansas City. Again, I want Jacksonville to win that. I'm a huge Doug Peterson fan. As I was saying, I love a lot of the players on Jacksonville, but I think KC's got that. I said 10 points for KC. And then Cincinnati, Buffalo. I'm with you, Jack. I said Cincinnati by 2 in Buffalo. As much as I like Buffalo, they have a lot of issues, I feel like. Still, I don't think their pass rush is all that great. And Cincinnati's playing really hot football right now. And as we saw last year, you do not want to play this team when they're on a tear. That's my thing. You do not want to play them when they're hot. And then on the NFC side, I have the Giants in Philly. Again, the Giants are a team I would like if they weren't an NFC East rival, but I don't see them really putting up a fight against us that week. I had Eagles 27-16. And then Dallas and San Fran.
Jones
Plays. He's not the issue. I'll say he's not the reason they lost. And I mean, 27-16 isn't like a blowout by any means. Like, I think the Giants will keep it close for about 3 quarters. I had Dallas and San Fran. I want San Fran to be knocked out early because as an Eagles fan, they scare me the most. So low-key, I would want Dallas to win that game because I think they're a better matchup for us, but I don't see that happening. San Fran's going to take that, I said, by 9 points. And then in this championship round, again, I'm with you, Jack. The Cincy team's on a roll. You don't want to play them on a roll. I have Cincinnati beating Kansas City again.
Really? I thought I was going to be alone on that.
30-24. And then San Fran, Philly. I'm going to counter you this time. This is probably my homerism here. I have the Eagles winning a low-scoring game. I think that it's going to come down to maybe a drive or two. I think when Lane Johnson comes back, he's going to play really well. I know a lot of people are worried about it. I am too. Don't get it twisted. I'm worried for him. But I do think he's going to play really well. I have trust in him. I think that might be the difference for us.
They'll be on a 12-game win streak at that point.
San Fran?
Yeah.
I know. But, I mean, dude, this, like, a lot of it in the NFL playoffs comes down to quarterback play. And I just think that the disparity between our QBs is enough. And, like, I do think outside of the QB, I think San Fran has a better roster than us, but not to the point where it would outweigh the quarterback differential. And I think that we're going to win that by 3. I said 20-17. So my Super Bowl is the Bengals and the Eagles. And as much as I want the Eagles to win this game, I think it's going to be somewhat of a shootout. I said 35-31. Bengals finish their revenge tour, win the Super Bowl this year.
All right, so I'm pretty similar with most of them up until the later rounds. So Bills, Dolphins without Tua. Dolphins don't have a chance. I got Bills winning that pretty easily. Bengals, Ravens without Lamar. Again, really easy win for the Bengals. Then it gets interesting. I really wanted to go Chargers with this pick. And then I watched the Chargers' performance on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Staley is not a good NFL
I don't
coach.
No.
think so
Some
either.
of the decisions that he makes are absolutely ridiculous.
I think he's out after this loss.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
Considering the fact that last year they lost to the Raiders the last week of the season, and then this week they have nothing to play for and play all their starters.
Mm-hmm. And he had that bonehead mistake in that Raiders game when the Raiders were just going to let the clock go and then let it be a tie. And he called a freaking timeout for no reason. Even if you were like losing or ahead, there was no reason to call a timeout there. And he did it. It was completely bonehead.
Yep.
I agree.
So you're going up against Doug Peterson, who should be head coach of the year, who already has a Super Bowl, plenty of playoff experience.
Mm-hmm. Is miles ahead of
That's
Staley.
what's going to favor this game, because I really like the Chargers roster.
Yeah.
I really wanted them to go farther than this, but I just, because of the head coaches, I just can't.
I was so high on them before the year, too, and they just have disappointed.
Yeah. So then going to the NFC, Seahawks, 49ers. The Seahawks would make it a game just because they're in the same division. They've played the 49ers relatively well, considering that they don't have even close to the same roster.
Yeah.
49ers will win this pretty easily still. Giants, Vikings, I got the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
They played them really close on that Christmas Eve game. The one thing they're going to have to do, and this is what every team that has blown out the Vikings has done, is shut down Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Jefferson went off in that game. He still had 11 catches over 100 yards, like a touchdown or maybe 2. They got to shut him down if they want to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they can, but I like what their defense has done in a lot of other games. I think it is possible for them to do. And they can easily shut down Dalvin Cook, which a lot of other teams can't just because of that pass rush and defensive line they have. So I think that they could win this game. It's going to be close, but I think they will. Cowboys, Bucks. Dak has played really badly recently. And it's playoff Brady. This is just...
I love it. I love it.
It feels like that this is Brady's last sort of playoff hurrah before he makes that decision.
Yeah.
I don't think the Buccaneers go far, but this is a game that they do win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I'm with it.
I honestly, I don't hate that at all.
Yeah.
I picked Dallas, obviously, but, I mean, I could see Tampa Bay winning this
And
game.
again, a lot of playoffs, to me, it comes down to coaching.
Yeah.
I don't like Mark
McCarthy.
McCarthy.
That's another
And
good one.
Boyles has not done... Todd Boyles has not done a lot as a coach and has really struggled. But you got Brady.
I think he's
on
a
the
little
team.
bit more competent than Mike.
He's more. Here's the thing about what Boyles can do. He's a better defensive coach, which you can plan easily if Prescott's struggling like he is now.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy makes some really. If you're going to talk about boneheaded decisions, Mike McCarthy is full of them when it comes to his history of being a coach.
Yep.
And as much as we talk about Rodgers choking in playoff games, a lot of it was because of McCarthy being the coach.
Thank you.
It's a tandem. They both aren't good in the playoffs. McCarthy has proved that being the coach of the Cowboys too. So no, they're not going to win this game. So then you go this divisional week. I feel like it's set up a lot like last year's. These games are going to be very, very good. Bills, Bengals. I've got the Bills winning this. I picked them to win the AFC. They finished really close to doing that. Had that situation not happened with Hamlin, which again, none of that can be controlled. So I'm not saying that the Bills should have been the 1 seed or anything like that, but they would have had the shot at it.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that all that stuff happened with Hamlin, and they're playing the same team again that all of this happened with, I think that favors the Bills. They were struggling in that game in the first. It was only the first quarter, but still they were struggling. I think there's a lot of momentum on their side right now. I think that's going to show out in this game. Chiefs, Jags, I really wanted to pick the Jaguars as an upset, but you can't do it against the Chiefs. You can't. 49ers, Bucks. 49ers have a much better roster. Buccaneers just won't be able to keep up.
Right.
And I think the game against Dallas will be so hard fought that after that, you just have too old of a roster to be in a good shape for a deep playoff run.
Yeah.
I have the Eagles also beating the Giants. It's going to be a physical NFC East game. The Eagles will get by, but it's going to be a lot closer than I think Eagles fans think it would be. So I have, for my championship games, I have AFC Championship, Bills, Chiefs. I feel like this is the Bills' year to finally get past the Chiefs. And when you look at Andy Reid in championship games, his record's awful.
Yeah.
It's not, he's made it to, I believe, let's see, he's made it to 4 with the Chiefs and 5. He made it to 9 championship games. He's only made it to 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah, right.
That's a terrible record.
He lost 4 straight with us, I remember. Early 2000s.
So he made it to 4 straight, lost 3. They made it to the one in 2004, the very end of it, by the way. And then they made it to the Cardinals, which they should have won that game.
Yeah, right.
And they choked that away. He has very undisciplined teams in championship games.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, again, with everything that's happened with the Bills, they have that momentum. I feel like the Chiefs somehow choke us away.
Yeah.
Like they did last year against the Bengals. Yep. Like they did against the Patriots before they made it to the Super Bowl those 2 times. And then 49ers, Eagles. This is also going to be a very competitive game. I just feel like the 49ers can cover up the fact that they have a young rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy.
They definitely can.
Yeah.
Like, they're so loaded at every position outside of QB.
So I mean,
Brock Purdy isn't even that bad.
No, he's better than Garoppolo. Like, I've said this before. He's better than Garoppolo has been. Much better than Trey Lance.
Yeah, I think he's a lot better than Lance, too. Yeah. And I was saying this to one of my friends, like, yesterday or the day before. I think that the 49ers are in a good spot with their QB situation. Yeah. I think that Purdy's their guy. I think they should move forward with Purdy, and I think they should shop Lance and Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Is Garoppolo going to be a free agent?
I believe he is. Yeah, this is last year.
I feel like that's going to be... He's going to be a free agent.
And then Lance is still on a rookie contract.
And he's going to want to go somewhere to start. And like you said, rookie contract, like teams are going to want that. So,
well, you could also... That's what I'm saying, though. You could keep Lance on his rookie deal. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, right.
I think it would be good letting him play out. I mean, like, obviously, Brock is like the big upper hand in the situation. But
after the Wentz Foles situation, I just think it's better to move with one.
Yeah, they'll move.
That's kind of what my thought was.
I think they'll move with Lance because he's younger. He's on that rookie contract. You don't have to worry about it. You can let Garoppolo go and then let a competition between Purdy and Lance play out. And the other thing, too, even if Purdy wins the Super Bowl, he's still kind of unproven because of the fact that he's a rookie. You don't know if this is just a fluke of teams need to figure him out, and then once they do, what will happen. Yeah. So, and you also really don't know what you have in Trey Lance still. He's only played a couple of games. Yeah. So I think the 49ers would be totally fine like not naming a starter till late in the preseason next year. Yeah.
I hear that.
So I
was just going to say, I would think it would be like really hard for the Niners to give him Lance up that fast because you don't even know what he is.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have 49ers, Bills, Super Bowl. I really like the Bills in this one. Their roster is stacked. I think Allen is ready to prove that he is right up there with Mahomes. This is going to be a very competitive game. Both rosters are stacked. I could see a situation where the 49ers win. They just have a slightly 100%. Better defense. Yeah. But I don't know if they had the offensive power to keep up with Josh Allen. So I really like the Bills for this playoff.
Yeah. If I had to pick a scenario that I wish would happen, it would be yours, honestly, because I really want to see Stephon Diggs win a ring. So
I know you love Stephon Diggs.
I love Stephon Diggs. Yeah. He's one of the founding fathers of the bad men. So I love him. So is Aaron Rodgers. So that's where it stems from. Yeah. Oh yeah. Also, I found it really weird. Week 18. Everyone was like quick to jump on the Texans for making a quote unquote boneheaded move by beating the Colts and getting the second pick. But It's not like the Bears are going to draft a quarterback now, are they?
So what they could do is trade it to a team that needs a quarterback, which is probably what's going to happen.
I think the Chicago's going to move back and kick the can.
You don't think they're...
I just think that the position they want will be there at like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'm saying from like the Texans' perspective, because they want Bryce. Like, you getting second spot is not going to prevent you from getting Bryce.
And honestly, I feel like they could end up in a better situation if they get C.J. Stroud, which is a guy they seem to not want, which again, I don't get. I also want to talk about what the Texans have done. They totally screwed over Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
And they've consistently done this. And it goes back to this whole thing that Brian Flores tried bringing up. And you could argue he didn't do it in the right way. But the Texans have proved this. They have now 2 years in a row have hired 2 minority coaches, put them in terrible situations, and then basically said, oh yeah, we're just going to use you guys as rentals basically until we find a permanent head coach. One that will most likely be, consider they're talking to Jonathan Gannon, would be a white head coach after 2 years of this.
Yeah.
It feels like Lovie Smith basically said, I am done with this shit.
I know, yeah.
And I'm just going to basically screw you guys over on my way out the door.
It was a little sabotage.
Yeah. And I think it was rightly deserved for the Texans.
Yeah.
And this is something I was listening to on another NFL podcast earlier today, where basically what they said was, if you are the Texans, now you hire a white head coach and say, hey, we're not one of the bad ones. We just had 2 black head coaches 2 years in a row. Even though you set them up to fail. Yeah. And they overachieved with the roster that you gave them. And still got fired.
Yeah, the Texans were really competitive in nearly all of their losses this year. Like they competed with KC. They competed with Philadelphia. Like, Lovie Smith had these guys ready to play every week. And it was a joke that he didn't get another shot.
And it's sad that this is what has continued to happen with black head coaches.
Yeah.
The fact that Steve Wilkes was given a horrible situation in Carolina made them a playoff contender for a little while and still won't be considered for the head coaching. Why?
Yeah, right. No, we said that November. We were like, Steve Wilkes should be the Carolina Panthers head coach next year. Yeah. And if they let him go, Steve Wilkes should be hired within 5 minutes on the market.
But and that's the thing. When he was fired from Arizona, he wasn't.
Yeah, right. I said this about Brian Flores when he got fired from Miami, too. I said he shouldn't be on the market for 10 minutes. Yeah. Someone who needs a head coach. I ran through 20 teams. I would fire their head coach for Brian Flores. And he's the linebackers coach on the Steelers. That's a disgrace.
Yeah. And when I look at the Houston Texans, this may sound like incredibly controversial what I say. I feel like they're taking advantage of the Rooney Rule.
Yeah.
In a sense.
So they are.
And I feel like having the rule in place even is like, it just kind of allows situations like this to happen. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just goes like, oh, we tried it out, so we don't need to try it out like the years where we want to compete. And I think yes, it's trying to help them, but at the same time, it's just giving teams situations to use these guys to just end up getting what they want. Yeah. I know it's a broken system. I'm not suggesting a solution, but I think there needs to be another solution instead of having to be forcing teams to hire guys of different ethnicities.
Mm-hmm. I understand that, but so the Rooney Rule is complicated because that definitely is what's happening with the Texans specifically. Yeah. And a lot of other teams have done the same thing. Yeah. That's what the Cardinals did when they hired Wilkes for the one season.
And the Giants, remember everything that happened when Belichick texted for
So it is broken. There does have to be a way to get more minority coaches in.
Yeah.
Because right now there just isn't any, and it's ridiculous that there's certain guys, like the fact that D'Amico Ryans, who has made the 49ers one of the top defense in the league, is getting to have to challenge Jonathan Gannon for the head coaching job for the Texans. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Gannon is apparently so well respected amongst NFL organizations, I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know why it's only white head coaches that are respected amongst the NFL owners. And you never hear a guy like Jim Caldwell, who did great with the Lions, but is now a couple of years after all that stuff happened with the Lions, where they had to fire Matt Patricia after bringing him in, and he totally tanked the Lions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Considering what Caldwell did, it really pisses me off that this is still something that we have to talk about in 2022.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And another guy who fits this mold is Deuce Staley too.
Yeah.
I feel like if Deuce Staley,
he should have been at least listened to for the Eagles head coaching job.
Yeah, and if not that, like, he should be an offensive coordinator
Yeah.
somewhere. Like, he is such an amazing football mind that we saw in Philadelphia for countless years, almost a decade he coached with us. Like, it makes no sense. And why is Deuce Staley not thought of as a great football mind, but Jonathan Gannon is? And, like, I think Jonathan Gannon is a pretty good coach, but I'm so confused where all of this praise comes from. Like, where teams are begging for him to be interviewed.
As an Eagles fan, I personally want to see his expertise elsewhere. But
I honestly, would you be mad if
No!
he got hired? I
Not
would
at
not be
all,
mad at
not at
all.
all.
I
I
said,
wouldn't be
like,
mad
I
at
want
all.
a new guy there. Like,
The defense has become so flat. And the other thing
Yeah.
about Gannon, look, I'm not going to criticize every white coach that was hired because a lot of them have panned out. Real Nick Sirianni, great personality.
We don't
Dan
know if
Campbell-
he's a great coach
Well,
yet,
I
though.
don't know. But here's the thing. When it comes to Dan Campbell, when it comes to Sirianni, they have both proven early on so far that they deserve more chances. But I don't understand why someone like Cliff Kingsbury is given a 6-year contract for getting the Cardinals to the playoffs to get trounced by the Rams, and then you decide that is a good guy to continue with your franchise to fire him the next year.
Or a guy like John Gruden, 2 years ago with the Raiders, they probably knew about the email stuff before it came out. They probably knew about that when he got hired. And, like, the fact that he got a shot, the fact that Josh McDaniels got a shot.
The thing that frustrates me about Gruden is that he had been someone that had been out of the league for about 10 years.
Right, yeah.
And then you give him, and again, that is totally fine if you want to give him a shot. However, there is so many coaches now that know the game.
Yeah.
The game has changed from when Gruden won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers now.
That's just a joke that people like that have been given chances, but, like, a lot of other people just, specifically minority coaches. And
it's something that the NFL still refuses to talk about, that the owners do not want to talk about.
And let's face it, the owners don't want to talk about it because none of them are minorities either.
Oh, yeah, no.
Which is a joke. Like, this is a league of 90% African-American men, and not one team is owned by an African-American. Am I mistaken?
There's not African. No, it's the Jaguars coach is the only minority coach.
Okay, yeah.
And what's crazy is when you look at, you could say, like, oh, the NFL's not, there's no racial bias against them. Why is there so many black coaches in the NBA then?
Yeah.
For the NFL.
Uh-huh.
When there is about the same disparity of minority players, but then these guys can become coaches on the bench. So they can be considered for head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
And that never happens
Literally.
And it happens at the general manager position too.
Yeah.
Look, I love what Lynch has done with the 49ers, but tell me that there is a minority NFL player that is given that position without any expertise at all.
Uh-huh. They have a huge issue. It's really a huge issue in the league. That, like, I don't know, they're scared to address it.
No.
Especially in an age like today, they're just scared to address that.
Yeah. Quickly, I just want to talk about the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, the Warriors haven't really picked up since we last talked to them.
Yeah.
And are you guys, like, getting concerned for them moving into the postseason?
Yeah, they lost a really bad game last night to the undermanned Suns, who were missing Ayton, Booker, and CP3.
That wasn't it either. There was more guys.
Yeah, there was more. Yeah. And yeah, the Warriors, it's like in the NBA, when you deal with injuries early in the season, it's so hard to build continuity when it's January and February, because a lot of the other teams have built that continuity and have had that experience with each other that season. But it's not really an excuse. Like, they just are playing sloppy basketball. They aren't fundamentally sound. Like, this is not a Steve Kerr Warriors team that we've seen in the past. And ironically, although I brought up the Suns getting that win last night, which was a good win for them, they're in the same boat, honestly, as the Warriors. Like, they are struggling. They're barely treading water right now. They're 7-8, and there are a lot of teams in the West that are looking a lot better. Like, to name 4 off the top of my head, it's the top 4 seeds. Nuggets are looking solidified as a West contender. Memphis Grizzlies, they're looking like they can contend for the West again. The Pelicans are holding strong right now without Zion and Brandon Ingram. And Dallas Mavericks, like, they've been a little bit up and down, but with how weak the West has been, like, the Mavericks could sneak through. And, like, we saw in 2021 when the Hawks sneaked through the East when there was a fraud up in the top. I could see Dallas doing the same. Like, Pelicans, Grizzlies, and Denver are not. They're not unreachable. They're not unobtainable.
No, they
right
aren't.
now.
Not at all.
Because like in the East, I think outside of the top 5, like who could really make noise? Not really anyone. But in the West, you could go all the way down to 8. Like when we get to April and May, like you could say if the Warriors are still 8, like they can still make noise in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you can't really say that in the East. I think the East is more top heavy. The West is just overall weak.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like the top seeds are weak, and just the conference as a whole is weak.
And circling back to the Suns, I don't know if you guys noticed, but DeAndre Ayton looks so checked out.
Yeah, no, I see that too.
He looks like he doesn't want to be there, and he kind of made that clear in the offseason.
Yeah.
He tried going to the Pacers, but the Suns kind of matched out of desperation. They didn't really want him, but like them without him would have been way worse than them with him.
Yes.
And now they might deal him. And you see videos of like him arguing with Monty Williams on the sideline. You see, I don't know if you guys saw the video, like literally the whole pregame shot, he was just taking underhanded half-court shots the whole thing.
Oh, I
like,
didn't see that.
Like, he obviously doesn't feel appreciated.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him at all because, like, there is a resentment for him not playing a certain way for being the top pick above Luka.
Yeah.
Think it would make sense to part ways, but I don't know what kind of package you get in return, and I don't know like what would it mean for them.
I don't even.
Pushing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's better for either party either. Like, I don't like you were saying. I think the Suns are worse without him than with him.
Yeah,
and for Ayton, I don't know how good he would be without an explosive offense that Phoenix has with guards like CP3 and Devin Booker. Like, what could Ayton really do as a number 2 or number 1 option? Because Ayton's game is not, isolating in the post or in the mid-range, which, like, for a lot of big men that are second or first options, that's what they can do really well is they can post up in the mid-range, isolate, and take their guy one-on-one. But a lot of Ayton's game is coming off the pick and roll and attention being drawn to the guard, and he's able to sit there, get the dunk, which is he does it really well, and like we see a lot of players that don't do that well. Ayton is a guy who does that really well. He's valuable to a team like the Suns. But if a team is going to trade for Ayton to be their number 2 option, what are they going to give up? Because you're not giving up a super big haul for Ayton's massive contract, and you're going to get a subpar second option. That's just the bottom line.
Do you think, I'm literally just coming up with this on the top of my head, but do you think if you traded him to the Kings, do you think with some help you'd be able to get Domantas Sabonis in return? Because that's literally the best thing that I can think of off the top of my head.
I don't think the Kings would really consider that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, Sabonis is a much better player than Ayton, in my opinion. And I think the Kings have it going well right now.
And obviously they did give
Yeah.
picks and other stuff,
right.
like to just sweeten it up, but like...
Yeah.
But I also don't know if the Kings want to trade all those picks either. Because you've got such a young team.
No, like the Kings receive the picks.
Well, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, but you also you could receive a few, but you don't think the Suns would also be asking for some picks as well?
It's
because you're
possible.
going to be asking... I feel like unless Ayton fully checks out, which he hasn't done yet, it's hard for me to be the Suns front office and say, hey, we're going to give you Ayton and we want like nothing in return for him.
Yeah.
Because if you're the King, you're going to be asking for something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Besides just Sabonis.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I don't know if the Kings want to do that yet. I also don't feel like the Kings want to do that because they're not in a total position to win yet.
Yeah.
I think if they had a more established team at this point, they would be more comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
But right now, they're a bottom-tier team in the West.
Yeah. And, like, to sort of, like, finish this NBA conversation, like, we should touch on the East.
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Their recent surge has really been proving me wrong. Like, they look like a complete team. And, listen, as much as we watched Ben Simmons, and I thought that was the Ben Simmons that was going to be in Brooklyn, it actually has been different. And he's putting up similar stats, and he's doing similar things that he did in Philadelphia. But his role being diminished really changed the aspect of who he is. And I think it's better. Like, I think he is a great fit for Brooklyn, and it seems really that this whole thing gelled really well for them. I know that now with Durant's injury, it's going to look a little different, which kind of sucks. Like, I don't like Brooklyn as a team. Like, I want them to lose because I don't like them because they're Sixers rivals, but they're fun to watch. I've been watching a lot of their games. I've been touching on highlights when I haven't been able to watch their games. It's a different Ben Simmons out there.
Yeah.
Him as a fourth scoring option is good. And
Which is, I feel like that's what he always wanted to do over there.
Yeah.
And he's like way more bought in and like, because like the Sixers just like, we had the right to, but like we just asked way too much out of him and we were just never going to get what we wanted out of him.
And like, I want to say this too. When Brooklyn got Blake Griffin last year, I think Ben Simmons is giving them what they wanted from Blake Griffin. Like, he's giving them that type of production. Like, Griffin could not meet anywhere close to those expectations. Like, they gave him a shot pretty much in the dark. But Simmons is like, he rebounds really well. He'll defend the other team's number one option if it's, because like they don't need to put him on a guard. Kyrie's a good defender. So if their number one option is a point guard, like they don't have to put Simmons on him, which the Sixers had to do. They had to put Simmons on a guy like Trae Young, which hurt them in the long run because it took him out of plays. But Simmons can guard the number one forwards and shooting guards, and he can have more of an impact because those guys aren't coming off of screen and rolls too much. And he has more impact when he's in the lane, taking away passing lanes and things like that. And when he's on the weak side for rebounds, because one of the big things that hurts defenses, like Exhibit A, the Sixers, weak side rebounding. Like that is a huge issue for a lot of defenses in the NBA. The Nets have that completely packed. Like Simmons is a great weak side rebounder. Durant is a great weak side rebounder. Claxton also is a great weak side rebounder. Yeah. Like they're a contender, no doubt.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt anymore.
Yeah. You touched on the Durant injury. I'm interested to see now what Ben Simmons' role is. Because they're going to have to rely on him more to score points.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to just focus on defense and being the fourth option when you have Kyrie and KD on the floor at the same time. Yeah. That sort of disappears, and this is sort of where he was at with the Sixers, is he had that other star in Embiid to rely on, but the Sixers still focused on him to be the scoring option.
Yeah, because they need
obviously the Nets are a much deeper team than any of those Sixers teams were.
Yeah.
But they're still going to need more offense production.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're going to get that. We'll see what happens with the Nets.
Okay, they're a good team, but like, we've seen Ben in the Sixers uniform put up like good offensive games in the regular season.
Here's the thing though, if the Nets are healthy once they get to the playoffs, Ben Simmons can be used the way that he still is now, which you can't really do in the playoffs when you were the Sixers, because again, you didn't have that deep roster. You didn't have all those scoring options. The other thing too is the Celtics have looked super weak after the super dominant run that they had.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The only other team that I think can really compete with the Nets is the Bucks. Who I still have as the top team. The Nets have gone on a great run. I'm not discrediting that at all. The Bucks, just to me, are a more proven team.
Yeah.
Have more history staying healthy than the Nets do, too.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes them a better contender.
As soon as they got Ingles back, it's like, wow. They're so efficient.
Yeah. And another team trending on the up, too, are Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, they've been playing a lot better basketball lately. Harden especially, like he's looked like we knew we were never getting Houston Harden, even when we traded for him. I mean, that was just completely unrealistic at this point in his career. It's looking like he's doing a lot of the other little things well this year. Like, I mean, obviously his initiation in the offense has been incredible this year. I mean, he put up like 15 assists almost in the first half the other night. And the other thing though that I've really liked from Harden this year is he's developed more of a mid-range game. Like when he was in Houston, it was all about isolation, shooting threes or getting to the rim. But here in Philly, like he's really worked to learn how to run out of the pick and roll. And also like he's able to pull up in the mid-range and he's added that aspect of his game. I think that's opened up for a lot of other guys. And another thing that's really making me believe more in the Sixers team too is Tyrese Maxey's coming into his own again. Like, when he came back from his injury, he struggled a little bit from the field. It looked like he was just going through the motions just a little bit, but you knew that everything else was there. Like his explosive speed was back and things like that. Now his shot is back. He's really got his feel for the game back. Maxi's going to have a scary second half of the year.
But
this
yeah,
year.
okay, the Sixers are playing great, but like we're all Sixers fans here. Like we all have a common goal, like before the regular season of firing Doc. I don't like how we're playing well because I think this is like the time of the year where if we went on like a pretty big dip, kind of like where the Celtics are doing, Doc would be shown the door.
Yeah, right.
And I would actually start thinking championship at that point because Sam Cassell would step up, right?
Yeah.
Like, I really think we could go that far with him. And Harden doesn't like Rivers, right? Like, or
I don't really know.
They squabble.
I don't think so, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
I don't know. Just like Harden, you like.
I've heard both.
Yeah,
that's the thing is I've heard both, and it's like I don't know what to believe. I just think that they probably have a fine relationship. Like I don't think it's great, but I don't think it hurts anything.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say about Glenn Rivers too is when we had that episode, I don't know, probably a month ago, before the Christmas games, and I was saying like the Sixers offense just looks so stagnant. He has changed a little bit. Like there are still times when it gets stagnant and the movement isn't there, but like there have also been times when literally all 5 guys are moving at the same time and they all are on the same page with where they're supposed to be, which that is the credit to coaching. And listen, I don't like Glenn Rivers. Like I'm even more of a Glenn Rivers hater than you, but I have to give credit when it's due. Like he's actually had a better year this year than what I anticipated.
Yeah, but when we're playing this good in the regular season, like
yeah, I hear you with that point. Yeah,
like I just know what's coming.
Yeah,
because Doc's job is locked. Like even if they dip now,
I hope he can stay consistent with it because like I don't think that the Sixers are far off. Like they're definitely a tier under the 3 Celtics.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Milwaukee,
Even if you put Sam Cassell in, can you really say that the Sixers are going to beat any of the 3 teams above them?
I mean, it's hard to tell because you don't know what he's going to bring. But we've seen many teams like run like in multiple sports with an interim coach. Like,
yeah, it's not only that though. When I look at even the Cavs, which are tied the Sixers right now on record, the Sixers to me just don't have the depth that you need to go on a championship run, and they've never had that. And I don't believe that they're going to have that because of the way the contracts have been done.
Yeah,
the fact that you're still paying
PJ Tucker.
Not the PJ Tucker one, but
his contract's too
Harris
much.
Harris is the one that's absolutely ridiculous. They've overpaid him by a lot.
Yeah.
Okay,
for someone that can't really score in the volume that they expected him to score in.
Yeah,
the fact that you're still paying Ben Simmons' contract is ridiculous. Even Embiid at this point, Embiid is always going to be MVP caliber, but still, when you look at how that contract's played out with the amount of injuries Embiid's gotten, the fact that he's never been healthy throughout an entire postseason run, that hurts. Nobody talks about. Everyone wants to talk about how bad Doc Rivers does in the playoffs. Everyone wants to cover for the fact that Embiid always gets hurt in the playoffs, and that totally derails any chance the Sixers ever have of winning a championship.
Yeah, if you don't have him on the floor, you have no chance.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you now have James Harden and a bunch of other people.
Yeah,
if you don't have Embiid, you're not going to win. The way this team's set up is to run through Embiid.
Yeah,
and Embiid, that's fine if you can have Embiid on the floor.
Yeah,
Would you? Like, I am still convinced, even though Katie got hurt and the Nets are going to struggle a little bit, they'll be okay. Even if Tatum got hurt, the Celtics would fall off a little bit. It wouldn't be a total collapse. If Embiid gets hurt for a month or a month and a half, the Sixers are toast.
Yeah.
There's no other team in the NBA that's like that.
And Katie's supposed to miss 4 weeks, right?
They're going to revalue him too, but they're not. It's sounding like he's going to be out at least a month.
Yeah.
Well, I was reading. Apparently, the team schedule's heavily favored to this. Like they don't play as many games as other teams are during that stretch. I think it's 12, 14 games. So I don't think it'll end up hurting them that much.
No, and when you look at their schedule too, they're playing the Thunder. Their next 3 games after the Celtics on Thursday, which is really tough. Thunder, Spurs, Suns, Jazz, Warriors, and then the Sixers. That's a really easy schedule to run through without KD. At this point, obviously the Suns could go on a run if they want. The Warriors could go on a run now they got Curry back. I could see it happening more than the Suns going on a run.
Yeah, sure.
But it's for the timing of this probably could not be any better.
I know,
the Nets.
And you have Kyrie there, so he can hold down the fort while KD's gone.
Did you see his putback slam? It was a week
that
ago.
was nice. Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that.
I know, yeah.
But yeah, do you guys got anything else?
Only other thing, I've been watching more college basketball now that the college football season has ended. The Big East has got some very competitive teams.
Oh, yeah.
Seton Hall's won 2 straight against Butler and Georgetown. Neither of those teams are that good, but it's set them up that they can now compete with Creighton and some of these other teams that are above them.
Yeah.
There could potentially be 5 or 6 teams in the Big East making March Madness at the end of the season.
And UConn looks really, really good.
They lost to Marquette tonight, though.
Yeah. Oh, really? They lost?
They
I
did.
did not see that. And they lost to Xavier over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Xavier looked really good in that. And, like, Xavier's a team where they won't be highly ranked necessarily, but they can make noise in March Madness as a mid-seed, 4, 5, 6, around there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
It's weird that we're talking about the Big East being so
I know.
good and we didn't bring up Villanova this year.
They
terrible.
lost to DePaul
Yeah.
last night.
They've just looked like nothing
Yeah.
you've seen in a J.
Well,
Rec.
so this DePaul loss was historic in so many ways. None of them are good for Villanova.
Yeah.
So it was their first loss to DePaul since 2008. It was a 23-game winning streak that they had against them, which is one of the longest ever against a single team. They flat out looked horrible.
Yeah.
They had the same record as DePaul, which has always been the bottom of the Big East.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I don't feel good about Villanova. I think Seton Hall
No.
could beat them right now, the way that they're playing.
Uh-huh.
Creighton easily could.
Yeah.
And then you've got Xavier, Providence, Marquette, and UConn are easily the top 4.
Yeah.
All of them have 6 wins except for UConn now, which is 4-3.
Yeah.
But they ran through their non-conference schedule, and they'll be fine meeting up on the lesser teams.
Yeah. And another conference that doesn't normally do well in basketball, that is doing well right now without the team you would think is the SEC. They have 2 top 5 teams, and neither of them are Kentucky.
I wanted to talk about that Kentucky loss quickly because that was shocking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shocking that they lost to South Carolina, who got blown up by 40 against Tennessee.
Yeah.
You're playing at Rupp after a bad loss to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to feel you're playing some tougher teams coming up.
Right, yeah.
This is a must-win game for Kentucky.
Yeah.
And a game that you usually win under John Calipari.
Yeah.
And they just did not
Yeah.
look like it was close, but it should not be close to South Carolina.
Right, yeah. And then one more conference that I want to touch on that has looked pretty deep and a couple surprise teams is the Big Ten. So you have the monsters right now as Purdue.
No.
Zach Edey is going crazy. And then Michigan State's doing really well, and Michigan's doing pretty well. Not necessarily amazing, but they're holding afloat right now. And then a couple surprise teams, Northwestern, Rutgers is holding up really well too, and Penn State Nittany Lions, they have really made some noise. They beat Illinois, who was ranked at the time, coached great under Underwood, and they look like they can make some noise in not only the Big Ten tournament, but the big tournament in March too. Yeah.
One team that's also really struggled that is usually a top team in the Big Ten is Indiana.
Yeah, right.
They lost to Northwestern. Northwestern, by the way, for people that don't follow college basketball, has had a great defense this year.
Yeah.
One of the best in the country, which is very unlike Northwestern.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've lost in the last week starting Big Ten play to Iowa, Northwestern, and Penn State.
Yeah, really.
That's bad.
And they got dismantled today.
Yeah, they lost by 21 or 19, to Penn State.
Yeah.
And now you've got your next 3. Wisconsin's ranked 18th, Illinois, Michigan State. They can easily go in this next week, go 0-6 to Big Ten teams.
Yeah.
That's a disaster where you want to be for Indiana. Considering that one team that they're above, there's Minnesota, who's not at all known as a basketball school.
Yeah. And the fact that Indiana started the season so red hot. They were up to, I'm pretty sure as high as 10 in the AP. They have skyrocketed down to the bottom, and it's been a fast drop-off because they looked so good in the beginning of the year. Jackson Trace Davis looks like
he still is playing very well.
Yeah, and it's weird how everyone around him sort of took that large dip. I'm drawing blanks on names, but they have this shooter, number 22, I think. Or no, 22 is Davis. I'm pretty sure he's number 10.
They got number 1 at guard, Jalen Hood. Scifino, 13.4 points.
Yeah.
4.6 assists per game and 4.3 rebounds.
Yeah.
They've got good players, which it just feels like they can't all consistently play well. And they had some injuries this last week. No doubt they'll get some players back.
Yeah.
But still, the fact that they're this far down this early and their only Big Ten win is against Nebraska is not...
It's a really bad start for them
Yeah.
for Big Ten play.
I'm interested to see if Northwestern can keep this up.
I know, yeah, I want them to.
I do too.
Remember when they made the tournament a couple years? Like, that was a fun run. And, I mean, they packed the gym. I like teams that, when they win, their fans give a really good environment.
Northwestern is... It's an unfortunate school because they have passionate fans. They're in a huge media center in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they just suck at sports so
Uh-huh.
often.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about their football team. I was really confident in them after winning against Nebraska, and that was the only win of the entire
Yeah.
season. But this time, their basketball team actually... Because this happened before where Northwestern had played really well in non-conference, but they played really bad non-conference teams, and then get in the Big Ten play and fall apart quickly.
Yeah, right.
So far, they've held up.
Yeah.
This game against Rutgers will be interesting because you mentioned Rutgers. They're playing really well.
Yeah.
They're then playing Michigan as well. And then their schedule evens out a little bit. But if you can beat Rutgers after beating Indiana and Illinois 2 straight, you got to be feeling pretty good throughout the rest of your schedule.
Yeah. I could see Northwestern making noise in the Big
And I guess one more thing before we wrap up. Another guy looking checked out in the NBA is D'Angelo Russell. It looked like that for a couple weeks, and he unfollowed the T-Wolves on Instagram. So I would look to see him getting traded.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because we didn't even get it looks like we're not even going to see a full season with this big four, but it's going to be impossible for them to sign all of them back because Kat and Rudy are both signed to a combined $500 million.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Two of the most questionable big name centers, but you do you.
Yeah.
And D'Lo's got to be the one that has to go because you want to keep Anthony Edwards because you could try to lock him up if you somehow, I don't know, I'm not a financial guy for that team. I don't want to be the financial guy for that team. It's probably a nightmare. But anyway, I'd look to see him getting dealt this upcoming trade deadline in the NBA.
Interesting. That could be a big name point guard, honestly, if you want to add a little bit more depth. D'Lo is fine being a leading point guard. I wouldn't really trust him if I were setting up a team, though.
He would... If you're trading for him as a contender, he should be a third option, probably.
Yeah. We just need to see if that happens.
Yeah. So, all right. We'll catch you next Saturday and the Saturday after that. We'll see you then.